Hello everyone, DM Gashbad here. As usual, I took a big chunk of time off to focus on Halloween. I'm back now. Thank you for your patience. We're going to start right back in with a brand new game called Warcry by Games Workshop. At the beginning of the year, I made a resolution to try out at least 3 new game systems. I've done 2 of them. I've done Warlord Games' Doctor Who Exterminate, I've done Rangers of Shadowdeep, and now this is the 3rd one. If you had asked me at the beginning of the year what these games would have been, I wouldn't have listed these. I had a lot of things in the works that I wanted to try out, but these are the ones that actually made it to the paint table and the gaming table. And I have to thank a YouTube channel called World of Wargaming for turning me on to this game. I had bought the Warcry, the first Warcry starter box, a long time ago, primarily for the terrain. I thought that the terrain looked fantastic, and the monstrous beast, the Furies that came with it, also looked great. And there was also a rumor that this game was going to be the new Mordheim. It was going to be a new version of that classic warband skirmishing campaign game that I really, really love. So I signed up for a pre-order. Sure enough, the box is great, the art is great, the terrain is fantastic, I like the beasts. The models are really nice sculpts. Unfortunately, the scale creep on these things is so large that it makes them difficult to use. But as for the rules themselves, I was disappointed to find out that it is not very much like Mordheim. It is streamlined, it is smaller, it is faster, it is very much a modern wargame, but it's not what I was looking for. It has kind of an anemic campaign system. There's really not a whole lot there. So I kind of set the whole thing aside. I'd pick out a couple of models or terrain pieces to paint up when they would fit in with other projects that I was working on, but otherwise I didn't really give it a whole lot of thought. Until World of Wargaming came around and pointed out that in the Tome of Campions 2021, so this expansion book that they produced a while ago, there's actually a solo campaign. This is actually great. I've really been enjoying doing solo gaming these days. I've been moving away from more competitive gameplay. So I picked up the Tome of Champions, and sure enough, there is the Rat Hunters, a campaign where you and perhaps one other player, I'm going to be doing this solo, are stuck in town during a giant Skaven invasion. The campaign consists of 4 games where your warband is dealing with an escalating horde of Skaven. The first 3 are scenarios taking place in a certain part of the city. You get certain rewards for winning. There are certain scenario rules that make them unique. You can take them in any order. Because I don't know a thing about this game really, I'm going to take them more or less in order of the book. I'm going to start with the Ironweld Armoury. But let's back up for just a second. First off, I need to point out that this is the first edition of Warcry. As I was prepping for this game, a new edition of it has been released. So these are the old rules. How different one edition is from the other, or if the new edition has solo play rules, I don't know. Sorry about that. And like I said, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know how good things are in game, what good combinations would be, so I'm just picking stuff as far as my warband goes, and as well as the Skaven invaders that I'll be facing. Speaking of which, let's look at that right now. I get 1,000 points to spend on my warband. I believe in Warcry 1,000 points is a fairly standard warband size. You're going to end up with around 10 to 12 models. I have a number of small Warhammer armies that I can choose from, but I went with Slaves to Darkness, so the old Chaos Warriors. The reason for this is more pragmatic than anything else. To play this game, I already had the Warcry starter box, but I needed to get the Tome of Champions 2021, and because it uses Skaven, I needed to get the army book for the faction, the Agents of Chaos, Devotees of the Ruinous Powers Warcry supplement, which gives you all the chaosy bad guy rules, of which Skaven are one. If I wanted to play a non-chaosy faction, then I'd have to buy a whole separate book. But the Agents of Chaos book does give you quite a few options. You've got Skaven, you've got Demons, you've got Chaos Warriors, you've got the actual Warcry warbands, you've got Beastmen. In the end, I decided on Slaves to Darkness, sort of your standard Chaos Warrior group. The reason for this is because I've already got my kind of chaos-themed Warhammer Quest party. They've been adventuring for a long time. We're actually running a Path to Glory campaign as well, using an offshoot of one of those characters. So I thought, why not keep going with that theme? In Warhammer Quest, my barbarian Lief the Leg-Biter actually got married at some point. And so I eventually painted up a model for this character, so his wife actually has a model that I've got. And I thought to myself, Lief the Leg-Biter is off campaigning for weeks on end. What is she doing during this time? Well, this Warcry campaign is going to answer that question. While Lief is off on another misbegotten adventure, she's going to gather up some of her best drinking buddies and she's going to go into town. Sort of a girls' night out where she's the only girl and the rest of them are bloodthirsty maniacs. But actually, to, give the Empire a bit of a break, we're not actually there at the north coast of the Empire to raid and pillage this time. We're just here to visit the local taverns and just have a little vacation from Norska. But wouldn't you know it, we show up, we have a couple rounds, we do a little shopping, and then all these filthy rat men erupt from the sewers and ruin our vacation. The local authorities are throwing money at us, trying to get us to fight for them, and hey, we are not one to back away from a good scrap, so off we go. So with that lengthy introduction, here's the warband itself. I had a couple of rules for myself when setting this up. First, it had to kind of fit in with the Chaos Warband that I was slowly developing, meaning that they are somewhat Khorne affiliated. I tried to use models that I have, or at least expand on units that I was working on. And most importantly, they had to come to exactly 1,000 points. Does it really matter? No, but since I don't really know what's good or bad in this game, I'm not going to leave any points left on the table. I'm going to use every single one. So at the end of the day, here is how I was able to collect a series of models that came to exactly 1,000 points. Now, of course, I needed to have my leader be the Dark Oath War Queen. Her name is Halldora Helsdotter, and she is the better half of Lief the Leg-Biter. With her, she has brought 2 Chaos Warriors with Shield, or as they call them, Chaos Warrior with Chaos Hand, Weapon, and Rune Shield. They give all their equipment fancy names, but I'm mostly just going to be using the old Warhammer fantasy names for these things. We've got a Chaos Knight with an ensorcelled hand weapon, we've got 4 Marauders with flails, and 2 Marauders with hand weapon and shield. Not knowing what's typical in a Warcry warband, this looks pretty good to me. We've got a powerful leader, we've got a big guy on a horse, we've got a bunch of chaff and 2 reasonably powerful infantry. I don't know, they seem okay. They seem tough too, which is nice, because part of this campaign is that if any of your guys die in the course of the campaign, you can't recruit anyone else. So I feel like having people that can take a punch might be really important. So that's them. For the first game in the campaign, we are going to fight 800 points of Skaven. So we're going to have a significant points advantage, which is nice. As before, I just went into my old Skaven collection and pulled out stuff that equaled exactly 800 points. For that, our leader is going to be a Claw Leader, which is basically a Skaven champion. We've got 2 Giant Rats, 3 Clan Rats, a Packmaster, 2 Gutter Runners, and a Warp Fire Thrower. Honestly, I feel like I might be doing myself some favors with this selection. I know the Skaven are 200 points down, but the stuff that I've brought, besides maybe the Warp Fire Thrower, doesn't seem especially scary. There's 10 models in the pack, exactly the same number as in my Slaves to Darkness warband. So at least for this first game, I'm feeling reasonably confident. So moving on to the game itself, Battle 1 Ironweld Armoury of the Rat Hunters campaign. One of the nice things about this campaign is you don't actually have to use the battlefield setups that are part of the normal Warcry game, which means I don't have to go through and paint up all of that terrain, because there's a lot of it, and it's kind of detailed, and I'm not willing to make that investment right now. The rules say you can just set up something that kind of looks like part of a town that might have armories or smithies or things like that. So I did what I could. I pulled out a couple of my stone buildings, scattered some small pieces of terrain around. As befits something in the north that's kind of half empire, half chaosy. The board for Warcry is much smaller. It's 30 by 22. And with all that terrain in it, I think it actually looks kind of nice. Having been used to playing Mordheim on a 4x4 table, this looks like much more of a street fight as opposed to picking your way through a giant section of city. So, this scenario sets up some of the stuff for you and some of the stuff you have to draw randomly, or choose. Specifically, I have to take both of the forces and put them into dagger, shield, and hammer groups. Each group has to have at least 1 model, no group can have more than half the models, and the shield has to have at least a third of your models. So again, not really knowing what I'm doing, I figured the shield sounds like the models that you're going to start on the table, kind of like a defensive arrangement, so I chose to put most of my guys in there. So for Halldora's Explorers, we get Halldora herself, a Chaos Warrior, a Marauder with a shield, and a Marauder with a flail. The Skaven will take the Claw Leader, as well as 2 Clan Rats and the Warp Fire Thrower. The dagger group sounds kind of like it's a reserve group that's going to come in quickly and strike in the later parts of the game. So for the Chaos Warriors, I put in the Knight as well as a Marauder with a flail and a shield. And for the Skaven, I put in the Packmaster, the 2 giant rats, and a Gutter Runner. Finally, the Hammer seemed halfway between those two groups. So for the Chaos Warriors, I put in a Chaos Warrior and 2 Marauders with flails. And for the Skaven, I put in a Gutter Runner and a Clan Rat. So after all that, we have to draw a card from the deployment deck. It's a deck of cards that show where these various groups deploy on the table and at what point in the game. And it turns out I was totally wrong about my assessment of what these groups were. I mean, maybe I just got a strange deployment card and they're normally like that, but not for this one. I got the Vengeance deployment, which meant that my dagger groups are going to start on the table. They're going to start in the middle, 7 inches in from the middle of each short edge. So any of our guys can deploy within 3 inches of those spots, so they're going to start pretty close to each other. This game isn't going to waste a whole lot of time. Everything else comes in reserves on the second turn. My shield is going to come in on the right corner of the closest long board edge. The Skaven shield is going to come in the center of that same board edge. So our largest parties are going to pop in on the long board edge closest to us, sort of real close to each other. Same thing with the Hammer. My Hammer is going to deploy in the center of the opposite long board edge, and the Skaven Hammer is going to deploy in the opposite corner. Weird. Finally, the point of the whole scenario is to grab these treasure tokens. My side is automatically the attacker. There are going to be 4 of these treasure tokens that I am going to have to set up within 3 inches of one of these Skaven deployment points. I choose the center of the table, the one kind of 7 inches in from the right-hand side. That seems like the area easiest to get to. So there's going to be 4 of these treasure tokens. If at the end of any round, all of the treasure tokens are held by my guys, I win. If 4 rounds go by and that doesn't happen, then I lose. The Skaven can't pick these things up at all, and all I have to do in order to pick one up is get within 1 inch on a move action. So, I don't know, to my amateur eyes, I'm feeling pretty good. I've got my Knight and 2 Marauders, I'm facing a Giant Rat, a Packmaster, and a Gutter Runner. I feel like first round I can start clearing those guys out, and then just start looting the center of the table. So, we're ready for the game to begin. First thing that happens is that I roll 6 dice. And I mark those down. So I count every die that's a single and every die group that are doubles, triples, quads, whatever. The number of singles you have determines which player gets to choose whether they go first or second. I got no singles on my first roll of the game. I got 2 1s, 2 3s, and 2 5s. Now that's not bad because there are certain abilities that you can activate using a double. And I don't really want to go first in any event. Now, the Skaven player doesn't get any doubles or anything like that. Instead, they always count as having 3 singles for the purposes of determining who gets to choose to go first. So the Skaven get that ability, and it doesn't really tell you what they're going to do. Now, to make things easy on myself, I'm just going to say that when the Skaven get the initiative, they're always going to go first. Otherwise, I gotta sit and think about whether it's better for the Skaven to go first or second, and I don't know, that's not really that much fun for me. I'd like for my opponent in these solo games to be as automated as possible. Just leave the thinking for one side of the table. So the Skaven have 3 singles they're going to activate first. It also doesn't tell you which model they activate first. So again, to make things easy, I'm going to go with the Skaven player is going to activate a model closest to any of my guys. In this case, it's going to be that 1 lead giant rat. So of course, this is getting pretty obvious, but this is a competitive game that is being adapted to a solo player game in the space of like 6 pages. So there's some blind spots, some holes, some vagueness. I'm just going to try and work around it. When the Skaven team activates a model, you roll on a chart to see what it does. There's one chart that you roll on when the model is already within weapon range, and there's one chart that you roll on when they're further than weapon range. The giant rat, as it only has its little ratty teeth, it's obviously out of range, so we roll on the far table, and we get a move, basically. Each model in Warcry gets 2 actions in a round. The rat uses its first action to move it 6 inches towards the closest of my guys, still not within range, so it uses its second action to move in as well. So there we see it right up next to the closest model on my side, which is the Chaos Knight. So on my turn, I get to activate a model. I'm going to go with my Marauder with Flail. The Flail has a range of 3 inches, so he can actually just sit there and strike twice if he needs to. Combat in Warcry is actually pretty quick and intuitive once you get the hang of all the little goofy symbols on it. The flail has a range of 3 inches. We're in range, so I'm going to spend my first action to attack. When we attack, we gather up the number of dice in the weapon's attack ability. Some warriors have more than one attack method. Anyway, the flail has 3 attack dice, so I'm going to roll 3 dice. Not only that, I have all these doubles sitting around. So I've got 3 sets of doubles. Each model can only use 1 ability in a round, so there's no reason not to use a double on each of my guys since I only have 3 people on the table. So I'm going to use one of these doubles to use Onslaught. It's a special ability every character has. You just add 1 to all of your attack abilities in the course of the round. So instead of 3 dice, he's actually throwing 4. The number you need to hit the target will depend on the strength of the weapon versus the toughness of the opponent. The flail has a strength of 3, the giant rat only has a toughness of 2, so because the flail is stronger, I'm going to hit on 3 pluses. So I roll my first round of attacks and I only get 2 hits. Each hit only causes 1 point of damage. The rat has 4 health, so we do 2 damage out of its full 4. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to continue to bludgeon this rat with my flail. So I roll my 4 dice again because I'm still under the effects of this onslaught special ability. I need 3s or more to hit, and this time I roll 3 6s. 6s in this game are crits. You have a whole separate damage profile for how much damage you do when you get a crit. For the flail, you do 3 points of damage each, so to this dumb rat, I just do 9 points of damage, and it goes kersplat. So while not the mightiest of opponents, I'm very happy with that. Good job, Marauder with flail. So back over to the Skaven team, and they're going to do basically the exact same thing. The next closest model is another giant rat. Again, it rolls the move result, and so it moves up to the Chaos Knight, still not in range, takes its second action as another move, gets right there. Back to my team again, and I'd really like this giant rat to be dead so that if I can just thunder that Chaos Knight into one of the more valuable targets like that Packmaster or that Gutter Runner. So I'm going to try and clear out that giant rat with my Marauder with the hand weapon and shield. The thing is, the Marauder with the hand weapon and shield, he's not as good as the guy with the flail. He's got a higher toughness, but he costs more points. He's only got a range of 1 inch, so he's got to move up first. And his sword only has 2 attack dice as opposed to the flail's 3. I can spend a double to do this sort of shield ram kind of thing, but against a weak enemy like a rat, I'm actually better off using a standard attack with an onslaught. So I do spend a double to give me 1 extra die. That'll give me 3 dice. I do manage to go and get 3 hits on this rat, but that only does 3 points of damage, so it's still alive. Back to the Skaven turn, the Packmaster is up next. He is going to do a recuperate and then a move. So recuperate is he kind of rests up and he regains 5 health, and then he makes a full move towards the closest of my guys. He doesn't have any damage, so he doesn't actually gain any health, but he ends up in the center of the table like that. Next up is the Chaos Knight. I'm still stuck in combat with this giant rat with its 1 health remaining. I can't just move away from a model within 1 inch of one of my models. You have to do a special disengage action, and that's 3 inches only. The knight's movement normally is 10 inches, and you have to end up further away from people. Anyway, that's not getting me where I want to go. So instead, I spend my double on Onslaught, because why not? And I absolutely squish this giant rat. So cool, it's round 1, the Skaven are down 2 models, 2 very weak models, but that's fine. And then I just kind of gallop past the Packmaster into all this treasure and pick up a pile of gold for myself. The rules say you can't make a normal move away from a model that starts within 1 inch of you, but it doesn't say you can't just zip past a model that comes within 1 inch of you, so I think this is fine. For the last activation of the round, we have the Gutter Runner. The Gutter Runner has these throwing stars, so it's actually in range to start its activation, and so it rolls on the close chart. It gets the attack result, so it's going to spend its first action to attack and its second action to attack. The throwing stars only have 2 dice, and their strength comes nowhere close to the toughness of the knight, so it's going to need a 5 or more to do any damage. So the first attack doesn't cause anything, but the second action does get a crit, which means he's going to punch 3 damage onto the Chaos Knight. I'm not especially worried. The Chaos Knight has got 22 health, a giant toughness, so I felt pretty good just stampeding him into the center of the table. Let him try and take this treasure away from me. So now it's round 2 and all the reinforcements come on. You can see my shield in the bottom corner and the Skaven shield in the bottom center. My hammer is coming on the top center and the Skaven hammer is coming on the top corner. I forgot to mention a couple of things. There is a twist card in this game and I have to roll randomly. It's one of two things. I get the Dusk twist. It doesn't really affect my guys at all, but it will affect the Skaven. On the first round, which we've just passed, the maximum range for any of your attacks is 9 inches. This round, the second one, it's going to be 6 inches, and then from then on it's only going to be 3 inches. So as it gets darker, it gets harder to shoot things that are far away. So that's nice, mainly because of that warp fire thrower. I don't need that blasting me from across the table. Secondly, every round with the initiative dice that you roll, you also get 1 wild die, or at least I do. The Skaven player does not. So you can use this wild die to modify one of the initiative dice that you have. So you can either add a single, or you can add it to one of the doubles or triples or whatever and turn a double into a triple into a quadruple, etc., etc. I didn't feel the need to use my wild die in that first round, so I've actually got 2 wild dice right now. For my initiative dice, I roll a 1, 2, 3, 5, and then 2 6s. So that gives me 4 singles, so I know I'm going to get the initiative. And I've got this wild die and this double with 6s, and so I'm going to add a third 6 to that. I'm going to get 3 6s because I really want to try the special triple ability that the Knight has. And I'm not going to waste any time doing it. I'm immediately going to activate my Chaos Knight, and I am going to use that 666 trample ability. That means that when I move, I'm going to move straight into that gutter runner right there. So after I've moved, I am going to do a amount of damage equal to the value of the dice that I've used. And since I'm using 6s, I'm going to do 6 points of damage to this guy right off the bat. Now the gutter runner only has 10 health in total, so I'm feeling pretty good about this. I spend my knight's second action to just do a straightforward attack straight into the gutter runner's head. Unfortunately, I only managed to get 1 hit through, which I think is a little unlucky. It does do 2 points of damage, but the gutter runner, disappointingly, is still alive. That brings us to the Skaven turn, and since the closest model to one of my models is that gutter runner, he's going to get him activated first, which really makes sense. I roll for his behavior and I get Deadly Strike, then Attack, Attack. Deadly Strike means that he just goes and does d6 damage to my guy. No to hit rolls, no strength versus toughness, no nothing. That's pretty rude. Fortunately, he only rolls 1 point of damage, but then he goes and attacks twice, and his regular Weeping Blades are a lot more powerful than those throwing stars. When all is said and done, he gets a hit and 2 crits through for a total of 9 points of damage. So suddenly, it's the very beginning of the turn, my knight has activated, and he's got 14 damage out of 22. He's just got 8 health left, and he is in the center of the board with Skaven closing in on all sides. No pun intended, but I may have been a little bit too cavalier with that guy. So I'm a little worried about this, and so I think I'm going to start doing some rescuing. The next Skaven that's going to activate is going to be that Packmaster, and with his range 3 whip, he's going to be able to throw some attacks at my Chaos Knight. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to activate the Hammer Chaos Warrior with Shield, and I'm going to double move him up, but I'm going to move him just outside of 3 inches of that Packmaster. It does mean that now I'm the closest target, so he's going to move towards me and is going to have to waste one of his actions moving forward. Not only that, moving up like that should bring him in range of my Marauders with flails so they can start beating him up on their turn. So next, off to the Skaven turn, sure enough, Packmaster activates. Even better, Packmaster again does a recuperate move action, so he is going to heal up 5 points of damage, which he doesn't have, and then he's just going to move towards my Chaos Warrior without actually attacking. So I was pretty thrilled about how all that worked out, so I'm going to activate that Marauder with the flail right away. He's going to take 1 move action to go up, and then he's going to try striking with that nice 3-inch range flail of his, and he's going to end up doing 2 points of damage to the Packmaster. Sadly, that means that the next closest enemy will be the Skaven Claw Leader, and the closest one of my guys to him is the Chaos Knight. His action is just a move, so he has to spend both of his moves just getting into contact with him. But now it looks like my knight's in real trouble. So again, I don't really love how this is going, so I'm going to use my Chaos Warriors as a bit of an anvil to just take hits from the knight. And so I activate my other Chaos Warrior, the one from the shield group, and he is going to double move up towards the Skaven shield group. So the 2 clan rats and the warp fire thrower. I'm going to hang out just outside of 6 inches of that warp fire thrower, so it just can't blast me twice with its fire. But I am going to be closer than Chaos Knight, so they'll be drawn over that way and away from all the treasure and my vulnerable looking dudes. Back over to the Skaven, and now that lead clan rat in the shield group is the closest guy, so he's going to activate, and he is far away, and he gets the charge, attack result. So with this, the enemy gets a free move action, the charge, and if it ends up within an inch of any of my guys, it does D3 automatic damage. Fortunately, again, it only rolls 1 point of damage for that charge, but then it's in a position to throw 2 more attack actions into my Chaos Warrior. The Chaos Warrior is tougher than the strength of this clan rat, but even so, it does get a crit through, and so it does a total of 4 points of damage to me. The Chaos Warriors have 15 health, and I'm a little surprised they took so much so quickly. When I was setting all this up, I was surprised at how expensive the clan rats were. They were 75 points versus like 55 points for a marauder with a flail, or 65, I think, for a marauder with a shield. The clan rats are good. They are faster than my guys. They have more attack dice than the marauders with the shield, and they're toughness 4, so they're tougher than the marauders with the flails. I may have underestimated some stuff here. So now I feel like I have a tough decision to make. I've got my War Queen, Halldora Helsdotter, right there. She can move into that clan rat and throw an attack into it. That's not a bad idea because I feel like without her strength in that area, the Skaven are going to overwhelm my guys. However, I also think that's not where the fight is. My Chaos Knight is still in trouble. The objectives are in the center of the table, so I gotta leave my guys to do their business, and I gotta move up to the center of the table and just help out in there. So she makes a double move, goes right up to the middle, right behind the gutter runner and the claw leader. She grabs a piece of treasure on her way, but she can't actually throw any attacks this round. Next up is that second shield clan rat, and it gets another charge result. So it goes rolling in to my Chaos Warrior. Again, only does 1 point of damage, gets 2 attack actions, managed to add another 2 damage to that pile. So my Chaos Warrior has taken 7 points of damage of his 15. These clan rats are mean. In my turn, I didn't take a picture of this, but my shield marauder with hand weapon and shield moves up and tries to help out. He goes into one of those clan rats, swings with his sword, doesn't do any damage. In the following round, now it's time for the Skaven to activate the Warp Fire Thrower. The Warp Fire Thrower also manages to get a charge result, so it goes plowing forward 6 inches, gets within 1 inch of the Chaos Warrior, and rolls 3 points of damage. So I don't know exactly what happened there. It got a nice burning edge to its Warp Fire Thrower and goes and charges in, zaps him over the shoulder of the lead clan rat. I don't know, whatever it is, I don't like it. Totally negates my technique of staying outside of the visibility range. He still has his 2 attack actions this round. First one he fires into the Chaos Warrior, absolutely melts him, just toasts his face off, cooks him in the armor. I don't love that. These Chaos Warriors are worth a lot of points. I don't need this guy dying and sending my guys back like 140 points for the rest of this campaign. And of course he's not done yet. He still has another attack action which he uses to spray fire onto the Marauder with the shield and does 5 points of damage to him. That was a brutal turn. I am very concerned about that flank. At least there's nothing else over in that shield group to activate, so I'm going to activate that last flail over in my shield. He's going to try and move up, just kind of support that thin chaosy line over there. So he moves once, he does throw an attack into the lead clan rat. He does get a crit, so he manages to punch 3 damage onto the clan rat. Clan rat only has 8 health, which is okay, but it's still looking pretty dicey. Back over to the Skaven, and he's going to activate the clan rat all the way up in the hammer group in the corner of the board. That guy also gets a charge. I think it's like 3 charges in a row for these clan rats, so it gets a bonus move. I don't think it ends up within 1 inch of the Chaos Knight, but it does get its full 2 actions after that, so it's able to move in and then attack the Chaos Knight, and again rolls a crit and a hit and manages to put 4 points of damage on my Chaos Knight. He's up to 18 points of damage and looking really hurt. And there's nothing really I can do about it. I'm going to activate my last Marauder Flail in the Hammer group. He's going to move up to the Packmaster in the center of the table. Hits and crits the Packmaster for a total of 4 points of damage, so at least that's fairly satisfying. But then we come to the last Skaven activation, and I'm really worried about this because it's that Gutter Runner and he has a ranged attack, so I know he's going to be able to throw some dice at my Chaos Knight. Fortunately, he only gets a standard move kind of thing, so he moves up and then spends his second action to attack the Knight with only 2 dice. Thankfully, he doesn't manage to cause any further harm. That's it for my opponents, so it's just the Chaos turn. The Marauder with the shield is just going to move into that giant battle in the center, try and help out. And my Marauder with the flail that started off in the dagger group in the very beginning, he is just barely within range. He can make a normal move and end up within 3 inches of that Packmaster. Unfortunately, he only hit the Packmaster once for 1 point of damage. The Packmaster, I think, has 8 health. He's got 7 damage, so he's sitting on 1 health left. So close. So here it is, round 3 out of 4, and I gotta start doing some stuff. My primary concern is that the Knight is really hurt. I do have a path cleared that I can disengage him from and then just gallop off, but I need to get the initiative. Otherwise, there's every possibility that someone in that giant group is going to kill him. The problem is that when I go to roll the initiative dice, I end up with 2 2s and 3 3s. And only a single 5. So I got 1 single versus the Skaven 3 singles. So I'm going to take a chance. I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to spend my 2 wild dice, all the wild dice that I currently have, and I'm going to add 2 singles to the group. That'll tie the amount of singles that we have. That doesn't mean I get the initiative. It means that we have a roll-off. I don't like doing this sort of thing, but I think it's my best shot. I do not want that Chaos Knight to die. So we roll off to see who gets the first turn, and I win! I was fully prepared to have me lose this dice roll, but I do go first, and so I'm absolutely thrilled. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to activate that Chaos Knight, going to make a disengage movement. I'm going to gallop back towards my starting area, 3 inches, and then full speed away from all these bad guys. And thankfully that Knight has a nice 10-inch move, so I'm going to grab my treasure and go. So then it's a Skaven turn. I've got a bunch of them in base contact with my guys, so I'm just going to randomly determine one to go first. I end up using the Clan Rat from the shield group that is currently fighting my Marauder with the shield. He is going to attack the Marauder with the shield, obviously. Gets 2 attack actions. Fortunately, he needs 5s or more to hit. He does manage to get 1 crit through, but I guess it could have been worse. Next up, I am sick of this Gutter Runner in the middle of the table. I do not need this guy stabbing my leader, for example. So I'm going to activate Halldora. Halldora Helsdotter is going to use her attack actions. This is where I find out she's actually not that great on the attack. I mean, she's okay, but for a leader, and with all the armor and health that she has, I was kind of expecting a little bit more. Still, she does really well. The Gutter Runner only has 2 health left. She does a minimum of 2 points of damage with each hit. She's got no problem killing off the Gutter Runner. She then turns her attacks onto that Claw Leader, so it's leader versus leader, and she manages to put a nice 6 wounds onto him. Teach these Skaven to mess with a Norse chieftain. Next up for the Skaven, they are going to activate the Packmaster, who is going to attack the Chaos Warrior. 2 attack actions. He gets 4 points of damage through, which is pretty nice. So it's back to me, and I'm looking at the table, and I'm thinking it's pretty likely I'm going to get all the treasure this round. And I don't really want to make a prolonged fight out of this. I don't get XP for kills or that kind of thing. I just want to grab this loot and go. And so with that in mind, I really don't want to lose any more guys. So I am going to activate my Marauder with the shield. Even though he's got a better toughness than the Marauder with the flail, he is hurt. He's only got 2 health remaining. So he is going to stab that Clan Rat that's been stabbing him. He manages to get a crit, so take that, you filthy rat, and then he's going to disengage. He won't really get that far, but he'll get further away than the Marauder with the flail, who is at full health, so he can kind of try and protect my guy for a little bit. Next we have the Skaven Claw Leader. He actually gets Recuperate and then Attack, so he heals back 5 health, which is disappointing, and then he turns his sword on the Queen. Now, I know I complained about how the Dark Oath War Queen doesn't really have that great of stats in the attack. Well, the Skaven Claw Leader is even worse, so he manages to miss her completely, which is great. So I feel like some things are starting to go my way. I still have that double and that triple in my initiative pool, so I'm going to start spending them. I don't know if this is a good idea. I do have it in mind that I might need some of those dice to use the ability that gives one of my models +1 move. But whatever, I'm kind of mad at these guys over on the shield area. So I'm going to activate my Marauder with the flail. I'm going to give him the onslaught ability. So he's got 4 dice, but again, these Skaven clan rats have a toughness of 4. My strength is only 3, so I only hit him on 5s. I only managed to hit him once for 1 point of damage, and then I use my second action to just back away a little bit. Again, this is round 3, so it's pretty dark. That warp fire thrower only has a 3-inch range. I don't want to get zapped with fire twice. Next up for that Skaven is that clan rat over there. He is going to just do a typical attack kind of thing. Well, technically the first action has to be a move, and then he goes into that Marauder with the flail and only gets 1 damage through, which isn't too bad. I'm now going to activate my Chaos Warrior, who's a little bit mad about having his Chaos Warrior buddy on the other side of the table getting killed, and also being whipped in the face by this Packmaster. So he takes his attacks and just pummels the Packmaster to death and uses his remaining action to move to the center of the table and look intimidating. That does now mean that he is the closest target to that clan rat from the hammer group, so it is going to get a move attack result, and so he's going to move into the Chaos Warrior and then attack him, getting 2 crits. Wow, these Skaven know all the weaknesses in my Chaos Armor. So he's going to do 6 points of damage to that Chaos Warrior, bringing up to 10 damage out of his total of 15 health. Ooh, maybe moving him up wasn't a good idea after all. My next activation is going to be the Marauder with the shield. He is going to move up and grab that treasure token, in this case this little book, maybe some sort of engineering tome for the Black Powder Gunnery School. And he's got an action left over, so he's going to stab that Claw Leader on his way. He manages to get a crit too. Now we're over to the Warp Fire Thrower. Warp Fire Thrower is just going to get your standard move. He's going to move up to the Flail Marauder, and then he's going to strike, and he's only going to do 3 points of damage. I mean, actually, that's kind of a lot, but, the turn before it was a lot more, so I think I'm okay with that. Now I'm going to activate my Marauder Flail from the Hammer group. He is going to make a double move, and he is going to grab that last piece of treasure. So if I can keep everyone alive, I'm going to win at the end of this round. And that should be pretty easy to do because the only activation that the opponent has left is the Gutter Runner. Unfortunately for the behavior, the Gutter Runner goes and gets the charge result. So he gets a free move that brings him within 1 inch of my Marauder with the shield, and he does D3 damage, and he maxes that out doing the full 3 points of damage. And then he has a full 2 attack actions to lay into this guy. That's not great. The Gutter Runner has 4 attack dice that it throws on each of these actions. It does 1 damage, 4 on the crit. Well, he absolutely murders my poor Marauder with the shield. It does sound like something a Gutter Runner would do, just skulking in the alleyways between these Empire buildings and jumping out and knifing some poor Northmen with their poisoned blades. But it's not what I wanted to see. So now I got 2 models down, which isn't great. However, I do have the Marauder that started in the very center of the board, the Marauder from the Dagger group. He can make a double move and pick up that treasure that just fell out of the hands of my Marauder with the shield. So thankfully I had a guy left in reserve to catch the rebound. So that's it. I've got all 4 of the treasures in hand. There are no more Skaven left to activate, so none of them are going to get dropped. But I still do have 1 more Marauder with a flail that hasn't activated, so he's going to walk up, and I do still have a double left in my initiative dice, so I'm going to spend that and get an onslaught, and I'm going to whack this clan rat that just stabbed the bejesus out of my Chaos Warrior for a hit and a crit, and I'm going to do 4 points of damage to him, and I'll give him a scar so he'll remember about messing with Chaos Warriors. Anyway, that's the game. My guys have won. Yeesh. Kind of a gnarly battle. For starting 200 points up, these Skaven can pack a punch. I was really surprised. Also, surprising thing, I kind of like this game. It rolls pretty fast. The combat is brutal. It is not really easy. You can have your guys die really quick with the turn of the dice. And I think the numbers are such that it's okay if you lose a guy or two, you don't feel too bad. Sometimes I don't like the swingy nature of some of these battles, but in this game I think it made for kind of a tense, hairy encounter. I don't know if I would enjoy it as much competitively, playing against a real person, bragging rights on the line, that kind of thing. I think the dice can really burn you and you might get some feel bads, but for a solo game, I'm pretty happy with it. Also, I don't know, just these Games Workshop games, they look real nice. I know I'm using the old models and my own terrain and all that kind of thing. And the square bases, I'm using square bases. I checked with my opponent, it's fine. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised, so in a little bit of time, you'll see more from this. There is some post-battle stuff to go through. Both of my guys thankfully survived. They recovered from their wounds and they'll rejoin the party for the next game. For the scenario benefit, I actually get something called blast powder bombs. They are exactly what you would think. Once per game, I can throw a big bomb into the center of bad guys and have them blow up. I think I'm going to give that to one of my marauders with the shields, just because they've got the worst attacks, and so if I give up one of their attacks to throw a bomb, I'm not losing very much, and they're a little tougher than the marauders with the flails, so they should survive to be able to throw these things. I get to roll for Destiny. If you get a Destiny level, you get a reroll for a future game. The only person to grab that would be one of my marauders with the flails, the one with the top knot. So I'm going to have to name him, I think. Finally, we also get to roll up 2 lesser artifacts. We'll search the ruins and see what we can get. The first roll got me nothing. You find nothing but dust is the result that I got. The other one is a greater healing potion, which I think sounds a lot better. It is a consumable as opposed to a perishable, and I'd rather have a perishable, I think. But still, it sounds real good. I'm going to give it to the knight, because I was surprised at how quickly his health can evaporate. I think in retrospect I did not set up my warband especially well. The primary benefit of these guys, well, they are relatively cheap, but they also have an emphasis on armor, which is probably one of the least important stats you can have. You're probably much better off with stats in damage, attack, health, speed, that kind of thing. So if I were to do this again, I would probably try and get something that hits really hard, someone with a double-handed weapon or something like that. But that's it for now. Put a comment below in the comment section if you have any questions, observations, or concerns, and I will see you on the next one.